The sound of an alarm clock echoed off the walls as 18-year-old Fire Charge was brought out of his peaceful world of slumber. He let out an aroused groan as he slowly opened his eyes and sleepily hovered his hoof over the snooze button and pressed it down, making the sound of the clock's reverberating beep silent. He rubbed his eyes and squinted at the time on the clock. It was 7:30 in the morning. He turned his head to the window. Through the curtains, he could see the bright orange circle of Celestia's sunrise over the buildings of Manehattan. Since his apartment was on the top floor, he could see all of Manehattan through any window. He hadn't lived in Manehattan his whole life. He had been living in the apartment for almost 6 years now, ever since he was 13. He was born in Cloudsdale, which was a town in the sky that was made of, well, clouds. It was the perfect place for pegasi like him to practice their flying agility. The thing he loved most about Cloudsdale was the Wonderbolt shows. Ever since he was a filly, his parents would sometimes take him to see the amazing acrobats perform their jaw-dropping aerial stunts. Whenever they were watching the performances, he would always tell his father, "Daddy, when I grow big, I want to be just like them." And his father would chuckle and reply, "You'll get there, son. You'll get there." He even got to meet one of his favorite members of the team, Spitfire, the captain of the Wonderbolts. He even got her autograph on a poster, and it's still hung over his bed to this very day since he met her. Ever since he was 8, his dream in joining the team has never changed. He wanted to go to the Wonderbolts Academy and let his dreams come true. But he knew the cost to sign up with the Academy was very expensive. The price to sign with the Academy was 300 bits. He had been collecting a life allowance, but it was nowhere near the amount of bits he needed. His parents knew how upset he was about the situation, so they insisted on him getting a job. After all, it was summer vacation, and some teens his age apply for jobs to earn a good weekly allowance. So he agreed. His dad also insisted that he try getting a job at the local supermarket downtown, since he saw in the morning newspaper that they were hiring. His father told him that the store gave their employees a wealthy allowance, so Fire Charge agreed on that too. And here he was a month later, waking up and getting ready for another day in his career as a stock clerk, shelving items onto each aisle, which was a bit of a stress. He didn't hate his job. It was just that sometimes after shelving cans and other items on every aisle, it would sometimes make his hooves sore. But he did get a decent allowance out of it. The allowance was 15 bits a week. He had been working there for a couple of weeks, and his allowance was at 75. He just needed 225 more. Then he would be able to achieve his dream. He got up, stretched, and made his way to the bathroom to take his morning shower. After he got out of the shower, he dried his wet, light blonde mane with a towel and rubbed the steam-caked mirror and looked into it to see that his mane was a frizzy mess. He chuckled. "Wow, I guess the shampoo with extra softening lather really took effect this time," he said to his reflection, his voice echoing off the walls in the bathroom. He picked up a comb and ran it through his mane, brushing it back to its straight and sleek style. Then he brushed his teeth, rinsed, spit, and went to his room to get his work apron from his closet. When he walked into his room, he suddenly stopped when he heard a thump coming from the closet. "Who's in there?" he called. No answer. Was some pony in there? Curious and a little nervous, he walked up to the closet door and pressed his ear up against it. Yes, there was definitely some pony or something in there, and it was breathing. "Come on, Fire Charge," he told himself. "You're never going to find out whoever's in there if you just stand around and not open the door." Seeing there was no way to argue with his thoughts, he took a deep breath and raised his hoof to the knob, and slowly, ever so slowly, he opened the door. Oh! Fire Charge let out a cry of surprise as a blue figure fell out of the closet and landed face first on the floor. Then he noticed the light blonde mane on the figure and let out a small sigh of relief. It was his 11-year-old brother, Sparkplug. Sparkplug? What were you doing in my closet? Fire Charge asked, holding out his hoof to help his fallen brother up. I was just helping you look for your apron? Sparkplug replied, giving his older brother a nervous smile. Fire Charge could tell by Spark's expression that he wasn't being fully honest, so he decided to test him a bit. Are you sure? Because I don't know if that's really the case, or you're just trying to play one of your pranks again, he said, giving him a knowing grin. Sparkplug's smile faded, and he let out a defeated sigh. Okay, you caught me. But you have to admit, I did kind of succeed in scaring you. He giggled. Well, that is true, Fire Charge replied. But it wasn't enough to make me scream like a little filly and urinate all over the floor. So, better luck next time. Hey, it was only a joke, Sparkplug shot back, giving his older brother a slight glare. Can't I have some fun once in a while? Fire Charge laughed and ruffled his brother's mane into the same mess as his was when he looked in the bathroom mirror after getting out of the shower. Hey, cut it out! Sparkplug cried, pushing his brother's hoof away and using his own hoof to straighten it back to its original style while he glared angrily at his older brother. Fire Charge laughed. Hey, can't your brother have some fun once in a while? He said. Sparkplug only grumbled in response as Fire Charge went past him and pulled out a red grocer's apron and put it on. Both boys got along well, but sometimes they couldn't resist a practical joke once in a while. Some ponies said that they look identical, which Sparkplug didn't really understand. Sure, they had the same long, light blonde mane and tail, but Sparkplug had a blue hide, purple eyes, and his cutie mark was a blue flamed lightning bolt. Fire Charge's hide was more of a turquoise color, and he had emerald green eyes that seemed to sparkle whenever some pony looked straight into them. His cutie mark was a lightning bolt, but it was yellow, and it had flames on top and colors of red and orange. Sparkplug was the energetic and outgoing one in the family household. A lot of ponies described him as always in a rush and fun-loving. Some also said that his cutie mark was a symbolization for his enthusiastic behavior. Fire Charge, on the other hoof, was more of the calmer one in the family. He hardly ever yelled at any pony, and it was rare for him to lose his temper. The only times he would get angry was when he saw some pony bullying another pony for no reason. He just couldn't stand that sight, though he never showed it by yelling or thinking violently. He would just scowl and shake his head without saying a word. Other than that, the brothers had a good life and bond. Yes, sometimes they would disagree a little, and yes, they would sometimes blame each other for something that one of them did, but that was just a way of them showing how much they care for each other and want to keep each other out of trouble. Boys, breakfast will be ready in 2 minutes, their mother called from the kitchen. I'm making your favorite, strawberry waffles loaded with maple syrup. Both brothers' mouths watered at the mention of strawberry waffles. They just couldn't resist the sweet smell of the freshly toasted grainy goodness, loaded with their favorite berries, and the maple syrup mixed with the red chunks in their mouth made it feel like they were in heaven. Coming, Mom, Sparkplug called back. Then he turned to Fire Charge. Race ya. Then he dashed to the kitchen. Hey, hold on a sec, Fire Charge cried, but his brother was already gone. Sighing to himself, he made his way out of his room and into the kitchen. There, sitting at the table, was Sparkplug, already chowing down on his waffles. "Well, look who's up and ready." Their father greeted Firecharge as he sat down at the table where a plate of waffles awaited him. "Thanks, Mom," he said to his mother as he picked up his fork and started to ingest his breakfast. The dining table was quiet, all except the sounds of the brother's father turning the pages of the morning newspaper as he silently read through the articles. The silence was finally broken when Firecharge cleared his throat and began to speak. "Mom? Dad? Can I tell you something that happened last night?" Both of his parents turned their heads to face him. Sparkplug didn't really seem to be paying attention to them, since he was licking globs of syrup off the side of his face. "What is it, honey?" his mother asked, placing 2 slices of bread in the toaster. "Well, it's about a dream I had last night," Firecharge began. "And, well, it was kind of disturbing." "Dad, can you pass me the orange juice, please?" Sparkplug asked their father, holding up his empty glass cup. Their father passed him the carton of orange juice. Then Sparkplug started pouring it into his cup. "What about this dream?" their mother asked, raising a curious eyebrow. "It's just..." Firecharge sighed. "I don't know if I can tell you. It was just so... appalling, if you ask me." "Son," his mother started, "you can tell me whatever you need to. If you don't say anything, we'll never figure out what the problem is. Even if it's gross or scary, you can tell it all to me. So you don't have to be afraid to say something to me or your father." The room fell silent again for a moment before Firecharge cleared his throat and began to tell his story. "Well, it started with me walking down a strange path in the middle of a dark forest. There wasn't a pony in sight, and I had a strange feeling about this path. Something just didn't feel right. I knew something peculiar was up. I could feel it by the skin of my teeth. Anyways, I kept walking down this seemingly endless path, not being able to see anything in the darkness. The only light there was the moon illuminating the trees and path, but it wasn't very bright. Then, after a couple more minutes of walking, I noticed a strange and very nauseating odor. It smelled like a dead body that had been decayed for a decade." He then made a disgusted face as he nearly gagged at the thought of the smell. Sure, it was just a dream, but he knew what decay smelled like. "It was so bad, I felt like I was going to throw up. So I covered my muzzle and began to run down the path, but the smell just wouldn't go away. It was as if the smell was coming from me. However, I stopped when I stepped in a strange liquid. It felt warm. I looked down at what I had stepped in. Then I felt like my heart was going to stop beating at that moment." He shuddered as he remembered that part of his experience in the dream. He really wished he wouldn't have told his family about it, but he felt an urge to tell it because he was always honest with his family, and not telling them what happens in his life would make him look like he didn't care about his lifestyle. He continued his story, his voice a little shaky as he spoke. "At first, I thought it was cherry juice that was just randomly poured on the ground for no reason, but then I realized that I stepped in blood. Oh, Celestia, just the sight of it made me pale all over. When I saw the blood, I knew there was a sign of foul play. I instantly began to back away until I felt something stop me in my tracks. It didn't feel like the rough bark of a tree, and the smell was much closer now. I felt my blood freeze like ice as I slowly, tensely turned to see what had stopped me, and He gulped as he continued. And what I saw will probably haunt my dreams for the rest of my life. What was it? His mother asked curiously. Firecharge struggled to find the rest of his words as he stuttered a bit, trying to say what he wanted to tell his family. Everyone, including Sparkplug, could see that Firecharge was really unnerved as he recalled his surroundings from his dream, or in this case, nightmare. Then he found his words. I saw a body. It was badly decomposed, and it was impaled into a tree by an arrow, from a bow. But the worst thing about it was that it was... He gulped again. It was mutilated from top to bottom. Its head was almost decapitated. Its eyes were gouged out. And... oh, Celestia. It was just horrifying and disgusting. His family gasped as he said that. A piece of waffle fell out of Sparkplug's mouth as he stared in wide-eyed, open-mouthed shock. But that's not the end of it, Firecharge said, nervousness plastered on his face. Suddenly, the moonlight unexpectedly became brighter and brighter until I could see more of my surroundings. And when I saw everything, I really wished Princess Luna were there to save me. There were even more dead bodies, mutilated, decapitated, gutted, intestines hanging out, impaled, everything brutal. Then, without thinking, I began to run. I had never ran so fast in my entire life, not even in my dreams. But something stopped me. It was a huge tree, just in the middle of the path, blocking my way. I didn't know what to expect next when I saw the body impaled in the bark. And at that time, I really wanted to get out of that nightmare. The pony that was impaled. It was... me. His family gasped again. Firecharge nodded. Yes, it was me. My jaw was dislodged from my skull, and my left hoof was torn off, and an arrow was stabbed deep into my chest. And right above my body, painted in the bark with blood, and which I assume was mine, was a message. It said, "This is what happens when you take a dead end." "Oh, my Celestia," his mother said, covering her mouth with her hoof. The rest of his family were still staring at him in disbelief. "Then I heard something behind me," he continued. I turned around, and I gasped as I stared at the silhouette, standing right there, about 10 feet away from me. It was just standing there, staring at me. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its cold stare entering my body. I felt like I became paralyzed because I couldn't move for some reason. It was as if the figure had trapped me in some kind of crippling force. Then it started to walk toward me. It wasn't a normal walk. It was a slow, menacing walk. Each step it took, I heard the threatening clop, clop, clop. Sparkplug tried to hide how scared he was getting, but he was starting to quiver as his brother kept on telling them about his nightmare. Then, the figure stopped when it was about inches away from my face. Then it held up something in its hoof, and from the light of the moon, I found out to my horror what it was. A knife. There was fresh blood dripping from it as the figure lifted it up into the air and began to laugh. It was the most horrifying laugh I had ever heard. It was so maniacal. It sounded like an inmate that escaped from an asylum. Then my heart stopped as I realized what it was about to do. It began to swiftly lower the knife down to my chest, still laughing that insanity-filled laugh. Then, to my relief, my alarm clock woke me up. And thanks Celestia it did, because if it hadn't woken me up, my bed would have probably been drenched. The family laughed, but it was laughs of uneasiness. Just then, his mother looked at the clock on the wall. "Oh, it's almost 8:30, she said. "Time for you and your father to go to work, Fire Charge." "Oh, Celestia, you're right," his father exclaimed, folding up his newspaper and placing it on the table. "The weather factory doesn't make weather itself." He got up and kissed his wife on the lips, said goodbye, then went out the door. The brother's father was an employee for the weather factory in Cloudsdale. There, his job was to create, well, weather. Their mother was a stay-at-home mom. She would look after Sparkplug for the day and do daily, normal house chores. Like the brothers, their father had a light blonde mane and tail, but he had yellow eyes, and his hide was more of a reddish-orange color than the boy's greenish-blue. His wife, however, had a long olive-colored mane and tail and emerald green eyes, just like Fire Charge. Her hide was a beautiful cerulean. When their father saw her for the first time, he felt his heart beat fast, as if it were telling him that she was the one for him to be with forever. Fire Charge swallowed the last of his waffle and drank the remainder of his orange juice. Then he got up and went to give his mother a kiss. Then he went to Sparkplug and held out his hoof for a hoof bump, in which Sparkplug did the same. Then he exited the door and made his way to the elevator. When the elevator opened, there were 3 or 4 ponies stepping out of it. He kindly greeted them, then he stepped into the elevator and pressed the button to the lobby. When he got down to the lobby, he greeted the receptionist at the front desk, then left the building and took off in flight towards the grocery store. As he was flying, he felt a strange feeling begin to overcome him. It was a feeling of uncertainty, like something bad was going to happen. "Why do I feel like trouble is lurking around the corner?" he thought. Little did he know that later on during the days, his workmates would vanish without a trace, in which it would become a mystery that began with murder.
Well, hello there, my horror crew. I hope you enjoyed today's narration. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and click that bell. As you see right next to me are my social media links. They will be down in the description below if you want to check them out. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Have a scary day, my horror crew.